Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the William Bonney podcast. Do we still keep calling it weekly? I think we should. I think it's a bit of a joke now. They're not so weekly, nowhere near weekly. It was almost weekly. It might be weekly again one day. Podcast. But yeah, thanks for tuning in for another episode. It's just a bit of a catch-up one, really. So people listening to my podcast before know that we've been talking about jobs, really, and how jobs have affected me, how I've been able to keep jobs getting out of prison, and how I've gone about getting jobs even with a criminal record. It's not easy. I've missed out my 20s basically. So from 18 to 28 I was in prison. That's the time normally when you're settling into skills, you're learning trades, you're finding out what you want to do in life, and I missed all of that. I spent that time in prison. So what happened when I came out? Suddenly, I'm 28. I spent a couple of years fucking around. I think I spent my first year fucking around and partying, trying to keep my head down a little bit, but still, my life went off the rails. But then, at the end of the first year, being out of prison, I nearly lost my girlfriend, who then became my wife, because she just had enough of my shit, basically. So, I knuckled down and got a job in a call centre. And the best thing about getting a job in a call centre is they're normally just taking on so many staff every week that they didn't even check my references. My references, who I claimed were my last two employers, because I never told anybody that I'd been in prison. My references, who I claimed to my last employers, were my two mates who were sat on my sofa at the time while I was going to do my job interview. So yeah, I lied about everything. I just covered it up, basically. It's probably not the most honest way of doing things. But at the time, I thought that, if I was honest about the fact that I'd rarely even had a job since I was 18, and I've lied and stole from employers, I've cheated my way through the system for the last 10 years, do you think I'm really going to get any jobs? So I was smart about it, and I lied, and I managed to get jobs in a call centre. I worked my way up off the call centre floor into account management, and then into management. And I was doing pretty good. And then obviously, the pandemic happened and I got made redundant. Since then, I've had about 5 jobs. I've probably had more jobs in the last 2 years than I've had in the last 10 years. So, it's been a bit of a tricky one. And a tricky one that ended me up in a commercial laundry, moving dirty, hot, smelly, wet, shitty sheets and pillows, and so basically it's all the hotels and everything in Cornwall and the southwest ended up in this laundry from hotels and holiday parks and things like that. So as you can imagine, that was a hot, sweaty job. That was hard work, 12-hour days in a hot, sweaty laundry. So I'm glad to be out of there now. After 6 months, I've managed to secure myself a little office job again. I'm not working in sales, so I'm not going to be stressed out and a knobhead all the time. Just a little admin job, 9 to 5, nothing to worry about, nice and easy. And they didn't ask for a DBS. I missed out on the last admin job because they did an enhanced DBS. So even though I'm about 15 years out of prison now, everything still shows up on the enhanced DBS. And there was when my prison record did come back, there was about 4 pages of it. It was embarrassing, but we got to try and move forward. So this job, they didn't ask for a DBS or anything, luckily, and I've worked myself into a little admin job where it's just a nice, calm environment where hopefully I won't end up butting heads with anyone and ruining it again. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about today, it kind of caught my eye a few years ago, but it's still relevant because obviously the case is still rumbling on and on. And this was a bit of an odd one, and something that shocked me with the length of the sentence, but also with the seriousness of the crime. Once you look into it, then it becomes quite obvious why they've got such a long sentence. Now, I'm talking about the GirlsDoPorn porn studio. One of the actors, sort of the main actor, the male actor in the videos, a guy called Andre, managed to get himself 20 years in federal prison. 31 years old, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit sex trafficking by force, coercion, and fraud. He admitted his role as a recruiter and a performer with the GirlsDoPorn.com and GirlsDoToys.com from 2013 to 2017. Authorities say the company lured in young women who had never appeared in adult films before. Now, I came to hear about this a few years ago. I remember something came up, I think it was on the Lad Bible or something like that, and it was a picture of one of the girls who'd been in one of these videos. And if you've never seen the video, or if you're listening to this with your girlfriend right now and you've got to pretend you've never seen these videos, it's basically like a cast-in sort of thing. It looks like they're in a hotel room. It's normally one girl or a couple, and you know they do their first ever porno movie, and yeah, it's just standard porn from then onwards. But yeah, they all look happy. They're all pretty. You know, they're all nothing unusual. But when you hear about what was going on behind it, no, sorry, I was going to tell you how I heard about this to start with. I remember on the Lad Bible there was something I remember seeing about one of the girls who'd been starring in these videos, and her boyfriend had put something online. He was in the military, and he put on all his army gear, and he's got a picture with his arm around this pretty blonde girl. And he puts up on, I think he went on 4chan and put up, you know, I must be the most macho man in here. And, you know, the picture knocked around for a little while. And then one of these nerds recognised the girl from the video. And they did a sort of, you know, deep dive on it, and they found the you know, the porn video that she was in. And it turns out she was even wearing the same clothes. So, you know, the likelihood was it was the same day that this picture was taken that she went and did this video. And I was just thinking, oh, God, can you imagine, you know, can you imagine the world finding out that your girlfriend does porn? There's nothing wrong with it, but if you don't know, then it can be quite a shock. And obviously these, you know, these trolls online, they didn't go easy on them. And yeah, the video started getting posted on her Facebook and on other social media, and you know, people would turn up at the house and stuff, and yeah, they contacted the family, and it got really ugly. But this is the problem you have when you sort of put yourself out there. You know, the internet is huge these days, and things can come back to you quite quickly. So yeah, that was how I found out about sort of, you know, the Girls Do Porn studio and this. So later on, it turns out, a couple of years later, I think it's when it gets through to sort of 2019, the guys get arrested. There's three of them. What was his name? There was the main guy, Michael James Pratt. He was from New Zealand, and then he had a business partner, Matthew Isaac Wolfe. He's also been charged. He ended up in prison too. And then obviously there was Andre Garcia, who was the male star in it. Now, what these guys did is they didn't, because there's, you know, in the porn world, there's lots, you know, casting is a genre. But most of the girls you see in those casting videos, they're all porn actresses already. They've all signed a contract. You know, they know what they're doing. It's all fake. It's all set up. Sorry if I'm breaking that to you. You know, fake taxi isn't a taxi either. But it's you know, it would be a crime otherwise. You know, and obviously that's what these guys have been done for. Now, what they used to do is they used to put up adverts in on Craigslist offering girls, you know, like $2,000 to go and do like underwear modelling or bikini modelling, that sort of thing. And all these girls would reply to the advert. And then once they'd replied to the advert, they'd then send them a further email saying, look, you know, the girls for the bikini modelling's all been filled, but we've got this other opportunity for $5,000 if you come and do porn. And obviously 99% of the girls fuck it off, but then there's that 1% or more that take them up on the offer. They get flown across the country. They go to the studio, and these guys get them into a hotel room, normally a 4-star, 5-star hotel. You know, it's nice. It all seems above board. And they were even giving them weed or alcohol as well. They were plying them with shots before the thing. They'd shove a contract in front of their face and tell them to just sort of sign it straight away. At no point on anywhere in the contract did it mention anything about Girls Do Porn or Girls Do Toys, which were their two main websites. What they were telling these girls is that these shoots would only end up on DVD, and it would be DVD that would be shown in, South Africa and New Zealand and Australia. It wasn't anything that was ever going to be shown in the US, so it was never going to get back to their families or anything like this. And obviously, if someone offered me the fucking 5,000 to fuck on camera, and then sell it in South Africa, I'd be down there every day. But obviously, not all of these girls were 100% on board with this. And what happened was that, a few of these girls, they, Andre Garcia and this, what was his name, Michael Pratt, they would put furniture in front of the door, wouldn't let the girls get out of the room. If they like halfway through they decided not to do it, they were basically forced for the rest of the night to do it. Some of these video sessions would last for sort of 7 or 8 hours, sometimes late into the night, because they would tell the girls that they hadn't got enough footage yet, and they'd just carry on, having sex with them, multiple positions, multiple angles and things. I remember reading a testimony from one of the girls, because I think it's about 20 of the girls came forward. I mean, bearing in mind there was like 400 or 500 films made. There were about 20 of these girls that come forward because obviously a number of them were raped, a number of them had sex with these guys out of their, out of their consent. They even, when the girls got there, they gave them a rating system. So it was basically 1 to 5 on how good they looked. So they wouldn't pay them the $5,000. Some of them would only get as much as $200 if they hit the 5 rating rather than the 1. So a lot of the girls didn't get anywhere near the money they were promised. They were told that they had to come back if they wanted to earn the rest of the money. So sometimes they'd end up coming back and doing, multiple sex scenes and more videos and more things. And then again, they wouldn't get paid their full amount. Some of the girls were told that if they didn't have sex, their flights would be cancelled. That they would send the producers would send the footage that had been made already. They would send it to their families and friends and things, and ruin their lives in that sense. Little did these girls know that even when they did consent, and they did do it afterwards, if you can call it consent, that the videos were getting posted to big porn sites like Pornhub anyway, where these racked up millions of views. And the porn, the studio made around $17 million from these videos. A lot of these videos have been taken down now. You won't find them on, the sort of major sites. There's been a court order now that obviously, banned these videos, and it's also given the girls the ownership of their, the video. So obviously, if it does pop up anywhere else online, then there's going to be court cases and high payouts to the girls for anywhere else this does appear. Now, a lot of these girls, some of them were porn stars, some of them, obviously got paid, and didn't have any objection to it, but there were, like I say, at least 20 who came forward who had objected to it. These guys, like I say, one of them's ran. He's on the FBI's most wanted list now, the Michael Pratt guy. And I think it's a 50,000. It's just been put up. Is it 50,000? Yeah, it's just gone up to 50,000 now to catch him. So maybe we could do an episode one day about trying to catch this guy. He's bound to have shaved his head, and he's like living in, he may have gone back to New Zealand. That's a bit too small. But yeah, maybe we'll do some bounty hunting one day, shall we? And we'll try and find some of these people and claim the reward. But yeah, during 2019, Pratt fled San Diego in the midst of a civil trial in the Superior Court over the pornography business, which used false and misleading claims and sometimes drugs and alcohol to coerce young women into performing sex acts on camera. A federal warrant for his arrest was issued in November 2019 on sex trafficking conspiracy charges. He slipped away from the home he'd been living in the Meadow Hills community of North Escondido, but left his cat behind. What a motherfucker. The more I read about this guy, the more I don't like him. According to court records, he paid his pet sitter to care for the cat daily. That seems suspicious. One of the things that is a bit surprising, though, is one of the producers, a lady called Amberlynn D. Norad, I think it was accused of posing as a fake reference to help assure women and lure them into the porn site. So the blokes were obviously offering them all this money and things, and if they didn't sign up straight away, what they did is they gave them a reference, which was a fake reference. It was a girl that was in on it, and she'd basically say that, oh yeah, everything was fine, we got paid on time, the guys were great, it was really fun, blah blah blah, and it was all fake as well. But the charges have been dropped against her. Maybe she cut a deal, something like that. But it's unusual. But maybe the courts looked at her as maybe a victim in this as well. Maybe she was just as leaned on as the rest of them. So the main man, Michael James Pratt, he's the one that's still out. He's got links. I mean, because I'm really into the idea of us as a community, the William Bonney community. We can get together and we can do some bounty hunting. This guy's got some links to New Zealand, Australia, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Turkey, Singapore, Japan, Chile, Croatia, and France. So I know we reach many corners of the world. So maybe we can start just looking around the neighbourhood for this guy, and maybe we can earn some dollar. We'll put it into each of us. We'll put it back into our bounty hunting business, and then we can we can go after some bigger heads, because I think between us we could have found Osama bin Laden. I reckon there's some smart heads in the group. Now the next thing I wanted to talk about today, and I've touched on sort of my upbringing before, and in my book I'm going to talk about it a lot more and a lot more in depth. And as much as I've led my upbringing was the ingredients to the product of me being in prison for most of my 20s. So I never looked at it that way, but I was obviously influenced by my older brother, who dealt drugs and was a local, tough guy. And also my mother brought us up in a way where, she may have told us the right things to do, but she always did the wrong things. And, at one time she stole a large amount of money, tens of thousands of pounds from her employer, and tried to get me to lie about it, to the police and to the courts and things. And at that young age, I was only 14 at the time, and we were going through some shit. My dad died when I was 9. My mum was never around, so me and my little brother were just going off the rails. And my upbringing was, I was basically left on my own from the point of being like 10, 11. We were basically left on our own for most of the evenings and afternoons and things. While mum went out working, or just when she wasn't working, she just hung out with her friends. She wasn't a great mum, completely inappropriate, and left us open for abuse, basically. And and that's what happened. And I've always struggled with talking to my mum about my upbringing and the effect it's had on my life, because it is obvious. If you leave a kid to do what they fucking want, they do what they want. And I ended up making some horribly terrible decisions, and there was never any consequences at home because my mum wasn't at home. And I've, over the last few years, me and my mum never got on when I was younger, and it wasn't until about halfway through my time in prison that I started reaching out and talking to her. And I didn't have any experience of other people's families and growing up and things, and until I'd had normal relationships with people after prison. But I've fallen out with my mum a bit more recently. Like, we haven't been close, and I wouldn't say falling out, but we've not spoken recently, and we only kind of see each other on like Mother's Day, my birthday, her birthday, and Christmas. We're just kind of rocking up at each other's houses, the bag full of presents on these days. We don't have anything to do with each other the rest of the year, and it's been like this for like 3 or 4 years now. And I've spoken before about the possibility of just cutting it off and just ending the relationship with this kind of farce of a relationship that we have. And just saying to her, look, you weren't there when we grew up, and we haven't got really a relationship now, so what's the point in carrying this on? And I just didn't know how to say that. It's a pretty fucking harsh and shitty thing to say. But I got the opportunity recently because my mum's moved she lived, a few doors away from me. She lived across the car park away from me, and we hardly ever saw her. And she's moved, about 30 miles away now, and she came over to see us before she moved, and she kind of made some comment about, well, I hope I see you more now that I live further away than I do when I live across the road. And it just made me kind of not snap, but I just thought, this is the fucking opportunity. And I decided to basically have this conversation with my mum that I've needed to have for a long, long time, and just not had the ability to in the past, because I just haven't had the tools to do it. So I brought up the fact to my mum that, I thought it was rich of her to say that we didn't see her when we never saw her as kids. And the fact that, like I say, for a lot of the time after my dad died, my mum took on she got a new boyfriend. My mum and dad had been divorced from when I was 2, so by the time he died when I was 9, they'd already been long split up, and my mum had been seeing other people and things. And she was seeing this serious boyfriend who used to beat her up. So a lot of the time after my dad died, I remember being in fear, listening to my mum getting beaten up by this bloke, 9 years old. I'm unable to do anything. I wasn't a tough kid by any means. I was a soft little soppy kid. Still am. And I remember sitting in fear, listening to my mum getting beaten up. And it affected me at school. And I've since learned about something called toxic shock, and it's like adrenaline based kind of toxicity, and it really does affect your ability to be able to retain information as a kid. And you see kids from chaotic homes so often are the ones that are falling behind in school, just because of this kind of toxic shock that their body and their brains just can't deal with. And I'm not ashamed to say that when I was in school, they did dyslexia tests on me, and I wasn't dyslexic. I was just slow, and I couldn't retain information, and my concentration was piss poor. I'd be constantly looking out the window, and I was one of the kids that used to have someone sat next to him, helping me do all my work and that sort of thing. So school was never easy for me, and I absolutely hated it. So the minute I got out, I didn't want to be in education any longer, and I started dealing drugs when I was in school to try and make sure I didn't have to stay in school any longer. When we got older, my mum brought us back down to Cornwall, because we'd spent a period up in Nottinghamshire, and then we moved back down to Cornwall. And my mum, like I say, she ended up robbing her employer for tens of thousands of pounds, which I'll explain more of in the book. It's a whole story in itself. But the first chapter of my book is going to be all about this story. And then she tried to get me to help her get away with it, basically. And she, I remember a solicitor coming over, and they helped. Well, she helped coach me on the story. Obviously, the solicitor couldn't, but she did that, and I was only 14 years old at the time. So it's no coincidence that within a year or so I'm dealing drugs. My older brother was a big drug dealer. I'm dealing drugs, lying and cheating, and by this age of 17, I've committed a robbery with a knife, and I've just gone worse from there. I've ended up in prison at 18. So I had this conversation with Mum, and I brought all these things up, and she didn't try and kick off or fight or kind of kick back in any way. It was more of just a kind of head in her hands, and just sort of said she's sorry. She knows she had some failings. She knows she made mistakes, but she didn't look at it as negatively as I'd done. Possibly from the because of the fact that with time, she's probably sugarcoated a lot of it. Probably saying as a lot of people do, they probably did the best job they could, and she may well have been doing the best job she could, and because she feels she gave us a better upbringing than her parents gave her. My mum ended up in care because my gran was a drunk, basically. So my gran had my mum too young, put her in care, carried on drinking, didn't give a shit about my mum. My mum ended up with foster parents until she was about 15 or 16, and then she ran away from them and went back and found her mum. And by the time she'd found her mum, she'd had about 6 more kids, but she'd kept them all. She hadn't given them up. But my mum ended up going back, and because my nan was still a drunk, my mum was looking after all the kids, when she was still a kid herself, basically. So I know my mum's had a shitty upbringing, but I can't help thinking that if I had kids, I would want to do just the exact opposite of how I was brought up. I know right from wrong. I know that you have to be, you have to be seen as a parent. You have to be seen to be doing the right thing, not just doing it, so that your kids learn from your example. Because even though Mum was telling us the right things, she was still just a shitbag at every opportunity. And then she's had 3 boys, and all 3 of us have ended up in prison. So there's that. So yeah, I kept bringing things up, like just the crazy kind of shit that my mum used to do. Like one time I remember she'd met a new boyfriend, so she dumped us at some fucking bloke's house that we'd never met, and we just stayed with this bloke for the weekend while she went off fucking shagging. And I still remember that vividly, just being left at a fucking bus station while when this bloke come up with his kids, because he had his kids for the weekend, and she just fucking dumped us. She didn't even wait to see if he turned up. She just left. Luckily he did turn up, and luckily he wasn't a nonce, and but fuck me, she had no idea. So we talked, and it ended up getting more and more annoying, because her selective memory, she just, she would just straight up deny that something's happened. And I'm not daft. I know that the truth is somewhere between my memory and her memory. I may be looking at it a little bit negatively, but also I've remembered it differently. Some of the bad bits that I remember vividly, she's obviously glossed over to the point of complete memory loss, or maybe that was just convenient for her at the time that she forgot. But yeah, now I then got onto the bit where within a couple of years of me being in prison, that she stole all that money and then tried to get me to lie for her, and she just denied that she stole it. She was trying to say that her employer just gave her the money, put it in her account, and said, there's nothing I can do if you walk away with it. He might have been jokingly saying that, but she did it, and it definitely wasn't her money. That's why, he went to the police after she robbed him. But she's still, she's in her 70s now, and she still, to this day, just thinks that she didn't do anything wrong. And at the point of her saying that she didn't do anything wrong, I just saw red, because she's just living in denial, and she still couldn't even see that she'd done anything wrong. So I kicked her out of my house. I broke up with my mum. That's, my wife sort of said that to me afterwards, because I was in bits. It was a difficult, really, really difficult sort of hour long conversation to have. And at the end of it, my wife said that, yeah, you broke up with your mum today. And that's the reality of it. She tried sending me a message afterwards saying that, I hope you feel better this morning, and she knows she made some mistakes, but I just kind of deleted her, blocked her, and just I'm just going to move on with my life now. But I'd be interested to hear your sort of thoughts on it. So many people just put up with family because it's family, but mine's criminal. She led me down the path that ended up ruining 10 years of my life. She gave me a shitty set of tools to fucking deal with life with, to the point where I was just aggressive all the time, committed crimes, and thought that was the right way to go. So yeah, I'd be interested to know your thoughts, man. Put them in the comments, and I'll talk to all of you, because I know by now most people, the little sort of crime fiction wishy-washy fans, they've all switched off by now, but I know the true fans always listen to the end, and I know who's going to comment. So yeah, I'm interested in hearing what you got to say about this. Also, just one last quick thing before we go. Elizabeth Holmes, we've been talking about a lot. She got guilty in the last couple of weeks. She is looking at least at least 10, 15, 20 years in prison. She'll probably be sharing a cell with that sex freak. But yeah, she got found guilty. The blood testing machines that never did work. She lied all about them. She got found guilty. Anyway, thank you very much for listening, guys. We'll catch you again. Like, subscribe, do all the things that YouTube like. And we'll do another video again soon. Thank you very much, guys. Cheers. Bye-bye.